Welcome to Tapped In. My name is Dave Figueroa-Martinez of DFM Coaching, and today we're going to be discussing your Jiu-Jitsu identity or DNA and why it's good that it doesn't look like mine. So this is one of those weird things that I tend to see happen in certain gyms, and I see students who maybe, and I've done this, emulate someone specific based on they do cool shit or they are your body type or they're just popular or they were suggested by your instructor. It does not matter what the reason is. We try to emulate those movements and those patterns and the technique because we want to get that sharp or that level of epic knowledge, if you want. But it's not supposed to, we are not supposed to be mirrored images or carbon copies of anyone. We're not supposed to be carbon copies of our instructors or training partners or anyone that we deem as our like jiu-jitsu mentors or the person we like look up to. It is great to look up to other people. It's great to look up to your instructor. It's great to look up to a specific person in jiu-jitsu as a whole. When I was coming up, my personal GOAT is Marcelo Garcia. Similar body types. We're both short, squat, little hobbit people. And I picked up butterfly guard, X guard, a little bit of single leg X. I do not play. My game has actually evolved into much more than what he specifically does. Like I don't have a great guillotine. I don't have a great north-south choke. I can pull them off from time to time, but I'm not great at them. They're not my go-to moves. So while I emulated aspects of him, my game naturally gravitated to other things as we moved about. We are not, again, and I'm going to say this a lot, we are not meant to be carbon copies of any one person. There are too many factors that generate someone's game for us to ignore so that we can be that version, which is unauthentic to you. I would equate techniques more as templates and not bulletproof step-by-step formalities or tattoos or anything that's cemented permanent. Your technique that you learn from someone should really be a little bit of a template. It's a framework for you to work off of. It's similar to if you are drawing and you're trying to emulate a certain style, you're learning that style, but as an artist, you're going to end up developing your own with time. That is exactly what you are as a martial artist. You might emulate someone, you might take a lot of what they do, but over time, you're going to start emulating several someone's. I emulated Marcelo Garcia at one point. I emulated Leandro Lo's spider game at one point. So over time, I've seen these techniques that I found like, this is beautiful. I could add it to the framework that I'm already doing. And then I would start studying that person. So if I was to look at my foundation and blueprint, it has a little bit of DNA from different people. I like float passing, which I took from Gordon. I have a butterfly half that I took from someone recently. I have butterfly from Marcelo. I have kimuras from other people. I like mount, like Hodger in some ways. So we're going to have that framework, but it's always going to be a living and breathing body of work. It's not going to be a specific, Hodger did it this way, I have to do it this way. Marcelo did it this way, I have to do this way. Marcelo, for example, at one point I had read or saw many years ago that he felt like the Kimura game was a big man's game or a strong man's game. I'm not necessarily a strong man or a big man. For my size, I might be strong, but I've used Kimura game my entire life, and I've utilized it in such a way that it helps me, and I can teach it to smaller grapplers, and they get quite a bit out of the Kimura game. So again, these people that we emulate, they have reasons for doing the things that they do based on their own experiences. They're going to be different than yours, and just because they feel like, oh, I don't do this, this, and this because of these reasons doesn't mean that you can't buck the system and do them for your own reasons. I never, ever in life want to create a mini me. There is no one else on this planet that should be carbon copy of me. I have students that take elements. I have students that take aspects of what I do and they pull them into their game. But really, I don't even think I have any two students that are remotely the same or close to the same. All the students that I have all have different approaches, intellect, viewpoints, personalities, body types, age, sex, that they all have their own unique games, all of them. And some of them overlap with mine. Some of them overlap with each other. But even within the elements that overlap, even if I taught it, it doesn't look the same when they do it. And that's not a bad thing. Sometimes I think that instructors are so hard up for, no, you need to do it the way I just did it. And I need you to drill it the way I just did it for a reason. And yes, there's a reason behind a lot of the techniques and the details of techniques that we do. But it doesn't mean that your reasons are going to be my reasons. I like it when I show a technique and a student, I look over and he's trying to apply the technique to something that he or she is doing, or maybe an element of their game that they want to connect it to, or they realize David's 5'4". I'm almost 6 feet. How I'm going to do this technique is going to be very different than how he does it. I have shorter legs. My feet are kind of stubby. My limbs are shorter. I'm squat. I'm a bit wider in the shoulders. So my body's going to be different. And how I apply those techniques is going to be different than a guy who's 6 foot tall. Technique is going to be different between men and women. Women who roll with men can sometimes roll differently than when they roll with women. It's a whole nother element. It's a different aspect. So there's going to be all these things. Again, your DNA is going to be shaped by so many different things. Your body type, injury history, your trauma, your physical limitations, your athletic background, who you roll with on a regular. So while Hodger is an elite level competitor and everything that he sees is going to determine or react or force a reaction to how he actually does technique. You're a hobbyist at a small gym. You don't compete. You can make the techniques work at that level and be sound based on the people that you're encountering. So yes, you can make them work really well. And there's nothing wrong with that. And then you go to an open mat somewhere and you realize that people at this open mat, when they're in guard, they stand. I remember the first time when I started seeing that. I was at a smaller gym and people didn't really stand to pass. Especially this was 14 years ago. We passed from the knees. And I remember a guard break that I was taught from the knees, and that's how we passed. And then I went to a competition and this gentleman would not open the guard. And I had a coach yelling at me, stand up and pass the guard. I had never done that before. So my technique in guard passing changed when I encountered that aspect. And I said, oh, I need to be good at breaking the guard open and passing at that level, not from my knees where things can get a little hectic because I'm so much closer to their hips. So all of our techniques are going to be shaped by all the things that I just mentioned, and they're going to be heavily shaped by the people you roll with. If you're someone who maybe you're the highest belt and you don't ever get to experience other high belts, and you're sitting in a room full of white and blue belts, your technique may not be as sharp because it doesn't have to be, because you're in a room with white and blue belts. Opposed to someone who's maybe at a gym where there's a couple of competitive purple belts, brown belts. It changes a lot of things. The things that you see are the responses all change. If you're at a gym that's small and you have a room full or a program that has 10 to 15 people, the responses you see are going to be limited. Opposed to a gym that has maybe 50 to 100 people and you get to roll with them regularly. They're all going to respond to things differently. So that's going to entice your game to evolve in a certain way based on what they're doing. It changes everything. So how I roll and apply technique are very specific to me. My temperament, if you're someone who's aggressive, your aggressiveness is going to set the tone for the technique you're going to use and the techniques you pick. If you're a bit more passive and on your back, so you're going to play more of a guard, maybe even then you're playing more of a guard that's not as active. Maybe it's impassable, but it's not submission threat heavy. Maybe it's more, it ties you up and it sweeps. So your temperament is going to add to this. There's a whole host of things that are going to reflect why your technique works a certain way. And so when I'm teaching, I sometimes will tell people it's okay to branch out. I'm teaching this back take and I can't body triangle. So I like putting my feet onto the outside hip. And that allows me to start attacking the outside arm and trapping it. But if I'm teaching the back take and someone who is taller then starts playing with the body triangle, I'm perfectly okay with that. It's related to what we're teaching, and he's demonstrating an acknowledgement of sorts where he or she decides that, how am I equating this to what I then would do soon thereafter? That's perfectly fine. I've been at gyms that they didn't like you to experiment things based on what was being taught and wanted you to limit it specifically to what I was being taught. And I think sometimes that takes away some of the creativity of a student that might have at that very moment where they're like, oh, I'm connecting this technique to this other thing that I do. I don't want to wait till after class. Let me just sort of figure it out now. That's perfectly fine for me. Some instructors don't like it. I want that creativity. I want students to be inquisitive, to start asking questions based on what they're doing. I want them to understand and look at big picture. I want them to understand and look at what it means to them specifically. And all of these questions and all of these thoughts that you might have when you're rolling and when you're drilling and applying a technique, they mean something and they shouldn't be ignored. So again, I don't want carbon copies. I want students to own the techniques as their own without missing the overall framework of what I'm teaching, because there's times I'm teaching for something very specific and there's elements where, hey, I put the foot on the thigh so they don't step around. I want you to keep that. Don't change that. But when it comes to some of the other techniques or aspects of the technique, you can be a bit looser. You can change things. You can plug and play other elements. And that creativity is what keeps us entertained. So I never want to erase that. I never want to push that away. I never want students to not be creative. I want them, when they're drilling, to be active in what we're doing. You are not to be a mindless zombie trying to emulate my game the way I do it. And with that being said, I think sometimes people think of techniques in purity. Hey, this is the way it should be done. So sometimes they'll see a technique and they're like, no, they needed to be doing it this way. And you can hear when a partner has that thought and they kind of tell their training partner, hey, so this is the way I learned it. And this is because I do it this way because of X, Y, Z. And that's good to an extent. But sometimes when that's done, it's almost done at the detriment of what's being taught, without the caveat that, hey, we're just going to do techniques differently. And there's a reason why that instructor teaches it that way. And there's a reason why you learned it differently from another instructor. Their DNAs are different. It doesn't mean one's better than the other. It means that one's better for that specific time period, that specific situation, that specific body type, that specific training partner. So I do want to get us away from that negative thought of this is better than that and this is better than those. Oftentimes it's not that simple. There's a lot of nuance in what techniques are good for and what they can do and why they work and why they don't. And so for us to understand the bigger picture, we have to be a little bit more open-minded when it comes to that and not lose track of DNA. You look at one person, you don't look at them and be like, oh, he's better than this other person as a human being or just a thing. You look at it as like, oh, that's just a different form of human. that's kind of how I want us to look at techniques. Dive into the techniques that you have grown to love. Push through. Every time you roll, you're going to be tested against something different, and it's going to force you to have to adjust, and that's going to force the technique to change based on you. So techniques, again, are built to us. We should not be carbon copies. We should not strive to be carbon copies. It is a complete waste of your time if you're driving to that. If you have any questions, please hit me up, dfm.2099 or dfmcoaching.com. I'm always available for questions. I love interacting with listeners and fans, and especially on Threads. I'm very active on Threads. If you have, again, any questions, issues, things maybe you want to pick my brain about, please do. My number one passion is helping people get better, and it's often comes at no cost. If you like content like this, please subscribe for BJJ Mental Models. It's the one thing, or one of the few things in Jiu-Jitsu that I actually actively pay for every month without even thinking about it. They have great premium content. They have a great series on everything from specific techniques to like mental approaches. It's probably the best asset for Jiu-Jitsu growth and insight. If you're interested, use code Figueroa-Martinez, FIGUEROA. Again, any questions, please hit me up. Until next time, thank you so much.